Narcissist Ensnared, Episode 34. "Which one do you think is best? I really cannot decide," said Ashley. She held her hand out, displaying the expensive engagement ring. "What do you think?" she asked the assistant stood by them. "Oh, it's not for me to say. It's your choice. It's very personal." She smiled. Wynne and Ashley were in a boutique jeweller in the market town of Colnick. They had been there for about 2 hours, as Ashley had tried on a succession of engagement rings. They had been walking past when she spotted a ring in the window. "That's like the one I saw in the magazine I was reading last night," she had said, and dragged Wynne into the store. "I like these 3, she commented, and Wynne nodded in agreement as she pointed to the relevant rings laid out on the table before them. "When are you getting married?" asked the assistant. "Oh, in October or December," Ashley had replied. "I want a winter wedding." "That would be beautiful," replied the assistant. "Where's the venue?" "Oh, we have a few in mind," said Ashley. That was news to Wynne, as he couldn't ever recall them discussing any venues. "It will probably be at a castle. We both love castles, you see," explained Ashley, as she regarded the ring again on her finger. Wynne smiled. He indulged Ashley in these moments, as ultimately it was what he wanted too, and he was just pleased to see her so happy. The last few days had been some of the best that he had ever experienced. He was elated. They had viewed several more houses on the Friday, and then he went out with his friends that evening and showed them the pictures of the most promising ones. He was also able to enthuse about their relationship, and they were delighted for him. They all knew the pain that he had been through in the past, and they were genuinely pleased that he was so happy. Wynne had sat in the pub, bubbling with excitement as he talked about their plans and where they might end up living. The next day Ashley had driven to his, and they had cooked a superb meal before having a hedonistic night up in his bedroom, courtesy of sex, drugs, and drink. It was just as the sun was making an appearance when they finally went to sleep, and they did not wake until after midday. Ashley seemed somewhat worse for wear, and they had to delay their journey to the Dales for a couple of hours to enable her to pick herself up. Once there, they had made love in the small yet elegant room, and then attended dinner at the sister bistro, where Ashley had sat looking at him with eyes full of admiration. He thought that she was looking rather thin, and he wondered, now that he was not able to stay with her part of the week, owing to the undertaking that had been given, whether she was actually eating properly. She always said that she was, but he had no way of knowing. Still, he had seen her tuck into both starter and main meal with enthusiasm, and that had pleased him. They decided on an early night that Sunday, so as not to spoil the next day. They had gone straight to bed, where Ashley had soon wrapped herself around him, and they were engaged in energetic love-making. As Wynne had neared his climax, he warned her that he was about to come. He always did this, as she had never wanted to bother with contraception. In the early stages of their affair, he had always finished off outside of her, but recently she had, not always, wanted him to come inside her. Once again he had decided to check. She had lain beneath him, writhing against him, before saying, "Let God decide." Wynne had let himself erupt inside of her. He knew she wanted a child to him, and although it seemed very soon in their relationship, he knew it would be an unbreakable bond between them. It would ensure that she was indeed his, and there was no risk of her leaving him. Accordingly, he was only too happy to go along with her wishes. She smiled as he emptied himself inside her and then he fell to the bed, spent. They both slept well, a consequence of the little sleep they had had the night before. After a magnificent cooked breakfast, they had walked to the nearby priory and taken a look around. The village was very quiet, since it was mid-March and still cool, the tourist hordes unlikely to arrive before Easter. The restaurant and its rooms were full, but the environs of the village, which was likely to include many holiday lettings, was quiet. They enjoyed strolling along the empty lanes and wandering about the church, hand in hand, before Wynne took many pictures of Ashley stood outside, the wind blowing through her blonde curls as she spun and pouted for the camera. By mid-morning they had driven to Conic and walked through the many craft shops, and Ashley repeatedly told him how wonderful it was to be able to do so with someone who was patient and not groaning every time she wanted to go into a shop. He was just happy that they were now spending time like a couple, not sneaking around and meeting for brief, if enjoyable, trysts after work. Peter had gone quiet too. He was not calling Ashley, and she had not mentioned any further text messages from him. Wynne was not one to check her phone, and trusted her to say that he had indeed gone silent. Instead, solicitors had been instructed concerning the sale of the matrimonial home. The arrangements were working with the children, and the only issue that really remained was hammering out a financial settlement between them. They were in the process of exchanging the financial detail between them, but Ashley had even stopped mentioning that in every conversation. It was a sure sign she was focusing on the positives of their relationship, rather than remaining bogged down in the carnage that was the marriage. Now, they were stood in the refined store as she tried on another engagement ring. "You haven't told me who you'll have as your best man," she asked Wynne. "I think I'd choose Andrew on this occasion, seeing as he knows us both." "That's a great idea," replied Ashley. Andrew had been Wynne's boss at Novo Bank and had mentored him from an early age. "You should ring him today and ask him. That would be something else to celebrate tonight," she instructed. "Sure, okay, I'll give him a call." "Marvellous. Everything is fitting into place, Ian. What do you think of this one?" Wynne craned his neck and peered at the ring. "It's decent, but not one of my favourites, but as I keep saying, it's your choice." "Oh, I really don't know which one to pick. I'm hopeless at making decisions." "I like the three that I've said. Well, actually, I do have a favourite amongst them." "Do you? Tell me, which one is it?" "No. If I choose it, then it'll spoil the surprise if I tell you." "How are you going to propose to me?" asked Ashley, as she sat fizzing with delight. "I haven't quite decided." "Oh, do it somewhere aboard, please." Wynne grinned. "Oh, my God, you're going to do it in Rome, aren't you? At the top of the Spanish Steps, or what about the top of St. Peter's Basilica? That would be so romantic." "As I've said, I haven't decided," laughed Wynne, amused by the excitement she exhibited. He could see that she was shaking. "Isn't he wonderful to me?" said Ashley to the assistant. "Oh, but of course, a beautiful ring in a beautiful setting," she answered. "Yes, but which one? Oh, help me, please. Come on, Ian, make a decision for me." "Oh, no, those days are over." "You remember everything," said Ashley, and gave him a look full of adoration. "Well, if you won't tell me which one to choose, I shall have to ask you," said Ashley to the patient assistant. "I do like this one. I like the twist in the metal, but I also like the shape of this diamond," she said, and placed a thin finger on the large solitaire placed on the mahogany table next to her. "They're all beautiful rings," added the assistant. "Would you go and ask your two colleagues to come and help me as well?" said Ashley, motioning towards two ladies stood further away in the store. The assistant, who had been helping them, nodded and walked away. "Blimey, Ashley," said Wynne, "will you be flying in a diamond specialist to advise you too?" "Don't tease me, Ian. This is important. This is the ring with which you and I become engaged. It's massively important to me. I have to get it right. For us," she answered. "Shall I ask some people in off the street to comment as well, then?" asked Wynne good-naturedly. Ashley laughed and looked out of the window. A few shoppers and tourists ambled by. a couple of similar age to her, and Wynne paused by the window and regarded the trays of rings set out before them. "No, I don't think so. They won't recognise quality like I do. The assistants will do, though. They see so many rings, they'll have an eye for what works and what does not." The three assistants were walking over, large smiles on their heavily made-up faces. Wynne prepared himself for the assault of fragrances that would wash over him as they neared. "They will say whatever gets the largest sale," smiled Wynne. "Well, it is you who will be paying for it," answered Ashley.